Hey everyone, let's get going with this chapter. And today we are going to finish this chapter, the living organisms and their surroundings. Okay, so we just have a few of the topics that are left unturned, but now we are going to discuss all of those. All right, okay. Doesn't this picture remind you of a movie? Everybody has heard of Mowgli, right? Right. The Jungle Book, remember? So, since we are talking about the Jungle Book, we'll be talking about a lot of things, as in what are the different kind of organisms that are present there. As you can see in this particular picture, we have the tiger, we have the monkey, oh, we have a panther, right? And we have an elephant, we have parrots, and every little kind of birds and butterflies and everything, right? So, we'll be learning how exactly do these organisms live in the jungle, or wait up, I saw snake too. Anyway, right? And what do they do for a living? Not exactly what do they do for a living in the terms of a job, but in the terms of how do they live? How do they go ahead and have their food, right? So we'll be learning all of those. So starting with the topics that will be covered will be the acclimatization, which is very, very important. Often this definition shows up in the exams. Then we have the living organisms need food, which is quite obvious, duh. And then we have they show growth, they respire, they respond to the stimuli, excrete, etc., etc., etc. Right? So we'll just get on with it. First things first, acclimatization. Let me just get straight to the point with this one right here. Acclimatization is, in simple words, adjusting yourself according to the surroundings, right? Whenever we go ahead and go to a new environment, such as the mountains or deserts, we feel uneasy for a moment there, right? But after a while, given half a day in the case of strong individuals, or one day or two in the case of weaker individuals, we kind of adjust to the environment, right? We kind of adjust to the temperature, to the kind of wind, to the kind of sunlight and everything there. And that is what we call as the acclimatization, right? So coming to this point right here, coming to this definition, acclimatization or acclimatization, so you can use the both Z and S here, so there's no chance of getting this spelling wrong. So yay. And then we have the process in which individual organism adjusts. So the key point right here is adjusts to a change in its environment, right? Allowing to maintain the performance across a range of environmental conditions. This basically means that we can go ahead and acclimatize or adjust into the mountains, into the desert, into the plain areas, into the forest, right? Also, acclimatization occurs for a very, in a very short period of time. That means our bodies are strong enough to quickly adjust, like, okay, this didn't happen, oh, it happened, to quickly adjust in any kind of environment, right? So for this, we're going to watch a super cool video of how exactly our body can acclimatize into the mountains, right? Right. So in this video, we are going to study about how exactly our body can acclimatize into the environment, such as the, high mountains, or when we have less air pressure and when we have cold environment. Everybody's aware of how in the mountains there's less air pressure and there's cold environment, right? So this is Dr. Christopher, who is going to explain everything in a very good manner, and I'm going to explain it later for you as well. Okay, moving on with the video. Also, apart from that, this guy tells you, apart from acclimatizing, we also need to take care of a few things onto our own end. Anyway, starting with the video.
And in order to acclimatize to high altitude, we need time. This cannot be rushed. And that's the mistake that we get into, is we want to get up there to altitude quickly. And then when we get up to altitude, we want to do the fun things at altitude, ski, or all the variety of different activities we can do at altitude. And in Colorado, we have 57 peaks that go over 14,000 feet, 57 14ers. And they're great to get up there and hike on, but it's a mistake to go from sea level to 14,000 feet and try to exert.
So what the guy is talking about here is he's talking about the Colorado town, okay, like the Colorado place, sorry, Colorado place. So what he's trying to say here is that in that particular place, in that area, there are 50 to 57 mountains which are above 14,000 meters, okay. And what kind of mistake we make on our own end is that we want to rush to get up there, okay. And when we rush to get up there, our body doesn't get enough time to acclimatize or adjust to the environment, right? And that is a very, very big mistake, rushing from the sea level, the place where we are, to up that high, that early, in that amount of time. It's a very big mistake. Why is that? Let's listen to him.
Yourself. It just is. And we'll talk about some of the reasons for that. But true acclimatization probably takes months, but you can start to really acclimatize in 4 to 7 days. And there's a ventilatory or respiratory.
See, what he's trying to say here is that acclimatization truly takes about months. Okay, you're going to feel uneasy for a bit of a time there in order to get truly acclimatized, in order to get your body completely adjusted to that environment. It takes time, but you start to feel a little okay or a little relaxed in about 4 to 7 days, or as I told, about half a day or 1 to 2 days. Okay, it max. And this basically goes ahead with the ventilatory acclimatization, as in the respiratory acclimatization, the way we breathe. In the mountains, we are going to breathe very fast, at a very faster rate when we just go there. But later on, as the time goes by, we keep on respiring a little normally, and we come back to the normal pace of our respiration. Okay.
Acclimatization, and then there's blood response to it. So we're building our red cells. And that makes sense, right? It's detecting lower levels of oxygen. So what's one of the ways we can do that? We can increase our blood levels that will carry oxygen, just carry more oxygen. And that makes sense. And in fact, after 3 months, you've truly adapted completely. But there are some athletes that will go before they're a big marathon, even at sea level, and they'll go up to altitude to train. Part of that is for their blood system to develop higher blood levels, carry more oxygen.
See, what he's saying here is he's giving a kind of example. Everybody knows that we have the RBCs, or the red blood cells, that carry the oxygen in our body, right? And that RBC level, or the number of RBC in our body at our home, are pretty normal because we have plenty of air to breathe in. But as we go high up in the mountains, the density of air decreases, and that leads to the uneasiness in the breathing. So what happens to our body at that state is that our body, it just keeps on making more number of red blood cells, and that develops our blood system as well. Okay, one thing you must have noticed: whosoever is anemic, as in doesn't have enough hemoglobin or RBC in their blood, doctor always suggests them to go ahead in the mountains. Now that really helps in order to achieve the higher levels of the RBC, so that our body can carry more amount of oxygen, right? Again, we can go ahead and watch the full program later on, but right now we're going to move forward with the chapter, okay, with the lesson. Now, as we saw the acclimatization, the one big example that we saw right here was the increase in numbers of RBC, that is the red blood cell, in our body when in the mountains, right? So that is one thing, and that is a very good example of acclimatization. And now you know why doctors ask us to go into the mountains, right? Next thing is, living organisms need food. Well, it is quite obvious that we need food. Why? Not only because we feel hungry, but it is because the food is a very prime source for us to obtain the nutrients, to obtain the vitamins, to obtain the different type of carbohydrate and fat and lipid and protein, in order for our body to grow as well. So that is extremely, extremely important. Apart from that, the living organisms, they need the food to stay alive, to grow, and to get energy, is very, very important. Without energy, our body cannot do anything. Okay, the way I'm talking right now, I'm blinking my eyes, I'm moving my hands, that is all because of the energy that is being produced by my body because I ate the food, right? And nutrition is very, very important, right? Why? Because we get everything from the food. All the nutrition comes from the food, and that is extremely, extremely important. On top of that, we as organisms, right? We are heterotrophs. Heterotrophs are the organisms which depend on other organisms for their food, right? For example, human beings are heterotrophs. How? Because we obtain food from animals, from plants, right? Whereas the plants, they do the photosynthesis. And that photosynthesis, with the help of that, they make their own food. What is photosynthesis? They make their own food with the help of the chlorophyll, sunlight, and water, right? And that is why they are called as the autotrophs. Auto, make their own food. Troughs, okay? Auto, trough, auto, self, trough, nutrition, self nutrition, okay? Heterotroph, hetero means different, troph means nutrition, so we're getting nutrition from the different sources, okay? And then we have the decomposers. Decomposers, on the other hand, are the, fungus, mushroom, etc., etc., earthworms. They basically obtain the food from dead and decaying animals. They grow on dead and decaying animals and they feed on to that, okay? And that is why they are called as the decomposers. They also come under the heterotrophs, right? No need to get confused in that, but you do realize what decomposers are, right? Similarly, human beings, the human beings, if we talk about, we are holozoic. What are holozoic? Which obtain their own food, we ingest our own food, right? We eat, we chew, and then we ingest, right? We also need water, air, sunlight, right? We all need our own type of nutrition and food. Now, that being said, we're going to move forward. Living organisms, they show growth. Now it's very important for you to understand that you, when you were born, you were a little baby of, this small size or maybe this small size, but then you grew up, you were in first standard, second standard, and now you're in sixth standard, such big babies, right? So it's very important for you to understand whatever is living is going to show the growth. Whatever is non-living is never going to show the growth. For example, if I have this pen, okay, this pen, this stylus right here, it was the same size the day I bought it. Okay, and it still is the same size. Why is it not growing? Because it is non-living. But when I was a little kid, I was this small, and now I'm like this big. Why? Because I'm growing. Why? Because I'm living, right? So we either increase in the size or we show multiplication. Multiplication, as in case of, let's say, bacteria or amoeba or any microscopic organism, they always divide and give rise to the new microorganisms, new individuals. Okay, that is multiplication. Apart from that, the organism, they which like the organisms which have the growth is kind of a permanent change in your body. For example, now that I've grown up, I cannot go back and be a baby again, right? That is an irreversible and a permanent change which occurs inside the living organism, which is very important for you to understand, because the mass of cells is increasing, the mass of individual, my bones are growing, my teeth are growing, everything's growing, right? Apart from my hair, I don't know why, but let's get back to the lesson. Anyway, and then we have the larger organisms. Larger organisms, they kind of grow according to their genetics, or let's say according to their DNA, right? And they develop, they could develop into a new organism, they could develop new parts, they could change a little bit. For example, we were apes or chimpanzees, right? Or gorillas when we were back at the stone age and something, and with the help of the changes according to the time, which is called as evolution, by the way. Evolution, I'm going to write that down here for you. Changes with time, changes with time, right? So that happened, and we kind of changed according to the environment. We evolved, we grew, our back became straight, our head became slow, our brain grew in size, right? The nose was erect, and our hands, they kind of they don't have claws anymore, we just have nails. Okay, our body doesn't have hair anymore, we just have the smooth skin that is properly there. But if you see the monkeys or the apes, you're gonna see claws, you're gonna see big head and smaller brain and a lot of hair onto the body. And this sort of growth is kind of visible, and growth is always internal. Keep that in mind. Our organs are growing, and that is why we are growing. The size of bones is increasing, the size of your organs is increasing, and that is how the growth is individual. The baby, a little grown up, and then teenager and a man. That is how things happen. Okay. Now, the next thing that we have is the living organisms respire. It is so important and easy at the same time for you to understand that human beings and rest of the organisms, be it plants, be it cats, dogs, microorganisms, even every single being on this planet respires, right? Without gases, without respiring, no, not a single process can occur in a body. So in order to produce energy, basically we have to respire. Why? In order to produce energy, it is very important for us to respire. And if there is no energy for us in the body, our body cannot move. So cells need and use the energy that is formed through the process of respiration. And it is very much important for the survival and the reproduction, which is like really important for you to understand. So whenever we talk about the respiration, no, bacha, respiration is basically inhalation and exhalation. With the help of inhalation, we take in the oxygen, and exhalation, we give out the carbon dioxide. So what really happens is we basically use the C6H12O6. We use the glucose in our body, okay, and we burn it to the carbon dioxide plus water plus energy, a lot of energy. The ATP that I've written here is the energy unit. It is the universal energy unit that is there, okay? And this occurs in the presence of the oxygen. So oxygen plays a very important role, right? And that is why we require the oxygen, right? So that is one thing that you'd understand. Next thing that we have is that living organisms, they respond to the stimuli. First things first, what is stimuli? Stimuli or stimulus is the any change in the surrounding, right? This stimuli could be internal, it could be external. For example, if we have a lot of winters right here, that is the external change in the surrounding. So I will feel cold. But if I have a stomach ache, that is the internal stimulation. So I will feel pain. Okay. So you see, stimuli is basically of two types. We have the external, that is the outer one, and we have the internal, that is the inner one, right? I hope you'll keep that in mind. So every single living organism, they have senses. For example, we can see, we can taste, we can touch, we can smell. So these kind of senses, they help us in responding to the changes in the environment, be it external, be it internal, and those changes are called as the stimuli or the stimulus, right? Now these could be external environment that we're talking about right here in this slide. For example, we can respond to the light, heat, sound, chemical, mechanical contact, right? Because we have these senses to see, to smell, to taste, to touch, right? For example, all the trees, they respond to the winters and the fall season by shedding their leaves. That is the first example right here. Or chameleon can change the color according to the mood or according to the surrounding. And then we have the sunflowers facing to the sun all the time, right? Or I'll give you an easy example. You can do this with me right now, like, sitting here. For example, I have my hands right here. So if I pinch my hand, ouch. So if I pinch my hand, it is the external stimulus and it is causing the pain. So I'm taking my hand back, like, oh no, that is pain, I'm not going to endure it, I'm going to pull my hand back. So that is the external stimulus, and I just pulled my hand back. So because I'm a living organism, I could respond to that, right? Now, that being said, you can always go ahead, and I would not suggest you to go ahead and touch the hot pan. No, you can go ahead and, open your freezer, get a little ice cube, and see how long you can keep the ice cube in your hand. At one point of time, you're going to have to let it go. Why? Because your body is responding to the coolness, to the cold thing, to the coolness of the coldness of the ice cube. So you're going to have to let it go. That is the response of our body according to the senses of the body to the external environment. Okay, so we can give the ice cube in hand example, or we can go the pinching of hand, or little these kind of examples. And then living organism is excrete. It's very, very important for you to understand that if we are eating, we are going to poop, right? Because all the poop, it contains the harmful and wasteful products which are not used by our body at all, but they are excreted out. Our body is like, okay, we took all the nutrients which were important, but we cannot use this much, so we always go ahead and poop. And that is the removal of that waste product from our body. We poop and we urinate. Okay, so we all excrete, and it is the removal of waste product of our body. That is very, very important for you to understand. And it is a very normal life process, right? We are going to utilize one thing and we are going to throw away the waste, which is not of any use. And this should always be removed. For example, the waste in our body is carbon dioxide, the waste in our body is sweat, the waste in our body is the undigested food which we go ahead and poop out, right? And we have waste on our body is the excess salts and pigments in our body which we urinate. Okay, so that is very, very important. If they accumulate into a body, if they go ahead and get all segregated into our body, it is going to be very, very difficult for us to live, to continue the life, because it can be very, very poisonous, right? Next thing is, all the living organisms reproduce. See, if we have the human beings, okay, right? We are human beings. Everybody can agree to that. What will happen if we stop producing the babies? At some point of time, all the human beings are going to vanish from the face of earth. We are going to extinct, right? So it is very, very important for the living organisms to reproduce, to give rise to the babies, to the offsprings, in order to continue their species, right? So it's very important. So for the continuation of the species. Now, what is species? Everybody must be a little curious. If not, good. If you are, that's good too. So species is a group of organisms which can reproduce among themselves. Reproduce among themselves. For example, a cat will produce a cat. A cat will not give rise to a puppy. And a giraffe will produce a giraffe baby. It will not give rise to a cub or a calf, okay, or an elephant baby, right? So it's very important for you to understand. Now, this reproduction could also be of two types. We have the sexual, where the two parents are involved, a male and a female. And we have the asexual, where only one parent is involved. Now, this asexual kind of reproduction can happen mostly in the microorganisms such as the bacteria or amoeba, etc., or in a few insects such as the honeybees, right? So you're going to learn more about it. Okay, so we have the asexual and the sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction, it allows without another member of the species, basically one parent. one parent. Okay, whereas the sexual reproduction, it requires the genetic material, which basically is the DNA, which is found in the nucleus of the cell from the two different members, okay, a father and a mother, right? Now, that being said, we have the basics to the life process, that any living organism that will be living there, or that will be living on this face of Earth or this planet or anywhere in the space, it is going to differentiate, it is going to grow, it is going to respire, it is going to carry out the digestion, excretion, and all the processes, okay? And it is going to do all the things, okay? So that is the major thing between the living and the non-living organisms, or the living and the non-living things which are present on the earth. Okay. See, important thing is they include organization. Organization basically means we have the cells, then which make the tissue. Tissue are the group of cell which perform a specific function, right? And then they make the organs such as the brain, stomach, hand, fingers, and then which make the organ system such as the digestive system, respiratory system, skeletal system, which we just studied about. Okay, and then they make the organism, the entire organisms, as in the human being, right? And then they show the metabolism. Metabolism, on the other hand, is nothing special, but all the chemical reactions, all the reactions which are going inside the living body, reactions which occur inside the living organism. Okay, living organism. All the responsiveness, we basically did talk about the stimuli, right? It is related to that movement. We can move, we can dance, right? And reproduction, which we just studied about. Now that concludes our chapter. Thank you very much. It was fun talking to you people, and I hope you learned a lot. All right, so that's it for today. You guys take care, have fun, and study a lot. Take care.